The socio-political group, the Northern Elders Forum, has advised law-abiding Fulani communities to seek protection where it's available and resist the temptation to take laws into their hands. The group has warned those attacking law-abiding Fulani communities, allegedly in the parts of the South, to desist from such actions. This has come at a time Bashir Tofa, a candidate of the National Republican Convention during the 1993 presidential election, was warning about growing tension in the North over what he described as attacks on Fulani communities in the South, warning that any retaliatory attacks on Southerners in the North will be difficult to control. In a statement yesterday in Kaduna, Director of Publicity and Advocacy for the Northern Elders Forum, Dr. Hakeem Baba Ahmed, expressed worries and concerns over what he called reports of ejections and attacks on law-abiding Fulani herders in some states. The forum called on President Muhammadu Buhari and state governors to protect the law-abiding Fulani communities from what he called killers and criminals who think that Fulanis have no right in Nigeria. This has been on for quite a while. How do we stem it? How do we bring this thing down, calm this tension down?
First, we have to find out just how far the rabbit hole goes, because we kind of profile a solution to the problem we do not understand completely. I find this statement a bit bewildering, because when they're saying protect, what's the word they use for the Fulani herdsmen, the legal Fulani herdsmen, the hardworking Fulani herdsmen, I can't remember the adjective they used there. I think it's the responsibility of government at all levels to protect lives and property, regardless of what part of the country anybody comes from. So when the Northern Elders Forum is saying protect these particular people, I understand where they're coming from because of the issue on ground, the farmer-herders clashes, what we have seen in the Southwest in recent days with the Sunday Igboho, the two local governments in Oyo State, those in Ogun State, the statement by the Ondo State governor that was misinterpreted by some, you know, and we have now been seeing the reaction coming from the northern part of the country. It is sad that, you know, as with every situation that we have seen, we like to politicize, ethnicize it. And it's dangerous, the ethnic tone that this is taking. And I think it's a message, yes, that is good, that should be passed down to those herders, you know, who some will say perhaps they don't understand the consequences of what they do. But you should know when your daily business encroaches on another person's livelihood and destroys it, you know. So when we see failure of leadership, this is what happens. We have allowed it to fester for so long that people have now resorted to self-help. And that's why we see the likes of Sunday Igboho now becoming a champion, because he's speaking for the people. They understand his language to say, enough is enough. We have not seen a government or a governor step into that position. So it is Sunday Igboho we understand. And whatever he says, we will do. And so the Northern Elders Forum, I think, is trying to avoid just a replica of that in the northern part of the country. It's a good message. I don't just understand why we will not generalize this. We should protect every life. Every life matters, regardless of what you do or where you come from. It's failure of leadership. It points to the level of insecurity we have, and we should fix it. It's about time.
Dr. Abati?
Well, I think the statement from the Northern Elders Forum should be taken very seriously. That forum, on a regular basis, issues statements on matters of national interest, particularly issues of interest to the northern part of the country. Apart from the Northern Elders Forum, you also have the Arewa Consultative Forum. You have traditional rulers from the north who have also spoken up on this subject. Now, the same day that Dr. Hakeem Baba Ahmed issued the statement on behalf of the Northern Elders Forum, the presidential candidate of the National Republican Convention, NRC, in the 1993 presidential election, Alhaji Bashir Tofa, also issued a statement, more or less saying the same things, warning Nigeria and the government to the dangers that we face with the politics of herdsmen and farmers conflict. The second thing about these statements coming from the north is that they again draw attention afresh to how sensitive ethnicity is and the risks involved in ethnic politics in Nigeria. Now, what is the Northern Elders Forum saying? The Northern Elders Forum is alleging that Fulani communities in different parts of the country are being targeted for purposes of ethnic cleansing, and that is unacceptable. They're saying that the Fulani ethnic group should not be criminalized, that persons who are going about their lawful businesses in whatever part of the country, they are citizens of Nigeria, and they are entitled as citizens to reside in any part of Nigeria. 2, they stress the point that the security of every ethnic group is important, including the Fulani. 3, they express concern that in recent times there have been reports of groups and individuals leading attacks against Fulani communities in other parts of the country. And I guess in that regard, they were referring to what happened in Oyo State, and also perhaps, by extension, Ogun State, with the case of Sunday Igboho and certain persons who were given ultimatum for leaving certain parts of the country to Fulani herdsmen. And, they said that such persons or groups that have been attacking the Fulani should be identified and they should be brought to book. They made the point that no state governor should invite any such individuals or groups to come and enforce security. There is, they argue, a Nigeria police in place, and that Nigeria police should do its job, and that criminals, yes, can be punished, but there should be no attack on Fulani groups. They made the point that should Fulanis continue to be attacked in different parts of the country, they will have no option but to recommend that all Fulanis in such communities where they are being attacked return to the north, and that the governors of the north should be prepared to accommodate them and find them, provide security for them. They specifically called on the President of Nigeria and all state governors to ensure the security of lives and properties of Fulanis wherever they may be. Now, the second statement by Alhaji Bashir Tofa says that, look, there is a growing sentiment in the north about attacks on Fulanis, and that this could lead to revenge attacks, reprisal attacks, and that's where the danger lies. So it's for all of us to realize that this country belongs to all of us, and nobody should be discriminated against. I do not think that those statements that are coming from the north should be taken lightly. We will recall that, this was the situation at a point during the First Republic, when there was this ethnic tension between Southeasterners, the Igbo specifically, and Northerners. And then, of course, all of that event degenerated into a civil war. We cannot afford another civil war in Nigeria. The security of the country is important, and the responsibility in that regard is a collective responsibility. However, I've seen reactions to the statements made by the Northern Elders Forum from a spokesperson for the Middle Belt Forum, and also the Ohaneze Ndibu spokesperson has also issued a statement. I think Yinka Odumakin, speaking on behalf of Afenifere, has also issued a statement. And the overriding sentiments in those statements is to dismiss the statements coming from the north as scaremongering. Now, I do not think that, that, in my view, is an appropriate response. Because if we have been following the narratives, recent narratives, it is indeed true that there is tension between herdsmen and farmers. Not just in Oyo State or Ogun State or Ondo State, but across the country. Some governors in the southeast, for example, have said they've banned open grazing. Okay? Now, is it not possible that that could be interpreted as an attack on Fulani herdsmen? Now, at the end of the day, the Nigerian government needs to solve the problem of cattle grazing, open grazing, or what they call the National Livestock Transformation Plan, which became popularly known as RUGA. Now, the Northern Elders Forum has made all these statements, but the Northern Elders Forum should also call to order persons from the northern part of the country who are saying that the Fulani own every piece of land in Nigeria. Now, that again is not helpful. So, caution, common sense, is required on everybody's part. And that's why I say that responsibility is collective, because there are persons who are saying Fulani herdsmen can take land anywhere. And you know how emotional people are about land, yeah. How attached they are to territory. Yeah. But the bottom line is that all of us as Nigerians must resolve to live together in peace. Because war or violence will not help anybody.
We can't afford another war. We need peace, and make it anywhere you can. We'll take a short break now. We'll return. We'll talk to Rotus, Michael, Desua, Aaron, the great team right here on the Rise News channel. We'll talk about global business, COVID-19, sporting activities, and the whole potpourri of wonderful package for you on the morning show. We'll be right back. Business, business, business. Welcome back. Still the morning show right here on the Rise News channel. And everything business, like I said before, it's our business to give you business in a grand style. Rotus Adiri is here. How you doing, Rotus?
Hi, Rufai. Good morning to you. Good morning, Desua. Good morning, Doctor. So this is one of my favorite topics to talk about, foreign direct investment. South Africa, in particular, Ford, U.S. automaker Ford, announced just yesterday that they are going to invest $1 billion in their Silverton plants. There are Silverton plants in South Africa, which is in Pretoria. Now, this $1 billion that they're investing is the largest investment that Ford has made in their 97-year history in South Africa. And essentially, what they're going to be doing here is they're going to be boosting capacity in this particular plant. Almost 70% of that money, about $686 million, is going into technology upgrades at this facility. This is a state-of-the-art tech facility that they are going to be upgrading. They are looking at becoming, they said they're going to call it an island in about 2030, 2034, where it's going to be carbon neutral and going to pretty much be a self-sufficient assembly plant on its own. About 1,200 jobs, direct jobs, are going to be created based on the supply line, because it's an assembly plant, and so they're going to be suppliers, production suppliers that assist the plant. Another 10,000 jobs are going to be created from there. I mean, South Africa's president, Ramaphosa, said that Ford is like a beautiful flower that attracts butterflies and other, pollinating insects, because he uses it as an analogy to attract foreign direct investment. So it's a really massive piece of news when you think about what South Africa has been going through. Speaking of what South Africa has been going through, let's go through some of South Africa's issues, right? South Africa has been downgraded by Fitch and also downgraded by Moody's. They are below investment grade. They are pretty much in junk status, which is going to raise the amount of cost of borrowing for them. What else is South Africa facing? They've also got unemployment. They are at almost 30%, right? If you include people who are no longer looking for work, South Africa's unemployment rate is about 40 to 45%. It's really, really bad. Also, South African Airways is essentially bankrupt. It's essentially insolvent. They are still looking for money to resuscitate this airline. What other problems? Eskom, the power company, there's been the load shedding issues where people have been experiencing blackouts. You've got the economy that's been in recession since 2019. They only just came out of recession in quarter 3 of 2020 or so. The corruption issues. I mean, South Africa has a myriad of problems, and yet, despite all the problems that this nation faces, they are still able to attract a significant amount of tangible foreign direct investment. Why? Because they are the most industrious nation on the African continent. And that's the reason why they're able to bring this way. I want to take you guys back to TICAD, the Tokyo International Conference for African Development. Happens every 3 years. It's triannual. Last one was in Japan, then they switched to Africa. 2016 was in Nairobi. 2019 was in Japan. 2022 is in Tunisia. That's President Buhari. He's with two executives. To the right, Minoru Murata, former executive VP of Toyota. To his left, Ichiro Kashitani. That's the president and CEO of Toyota. He sought their investments. President Buhari has been there twice. He's been to TICAD twice. But you can see him signing papers with Ghana. That's Nana Akufo-Addo. They essentially agreed, coming out of the Tokyo International Conference on African Development, it was only Ghana and Ivory Coast that secured concrete promises from Toyota to set up assembly plants. That was August of 2019. Within a year, by February of 2020, Toyota had already applied for a a license to open up an assembly plant in Ghana. They signed about 16 MOUs. Most of them were with Kenya, Ghana, Ivory Coast. Nigeria only got pledges. They pledged to help us with, this is an automaker pledging to help Nigeria with healthcare and to help Nigeria with a few other things. So, look, we as a nation, the giant of Africa, we got to do better when it comes to attracting investment, because this is, for South Africa to achieve this is incredible despite all the issues they're facing. And that's what we're talking about.
I mean, okay, are you done? I'd like to jump on this.
I am. Go ahead.
You know, this is very symbolic for South Africa. You know why? The first international plant Henry Ford set up outside of America was in Brazil. That was around 1912, 1913. Do you know what? Ford has just shut down Brazilian plants.
Yes, and even in the EU.
And even in EU.
Yeah.
So if Ford could shut down the plant in Brazil and bring $1 billion US and bring it to South Africa, it was symbolic. You know, the plant in Brazil was so big that there was a talk about it being a city on its own.
Right.
It was there to improve the Amazon, and Henry Ford specifically was passionate about it. That's to show us a lot. You know why they're coming to South Africa? There is access to credit by the middle class.
Exactly.
Because people don't go into a shop and pay 4 million naira down like we do in Nigeria to buy a car.
Yes.
They pay for cars 300 rand, 400 rand
and
monthly.
And
they finance it across board.
Yes.
That's the reason why these top companies come into South Africa.
Yes.
In Nigeria, we don't have access to credit for middle class. And except we solve that problem, we will go nowhere.
Excellent point.
Well, quickly,
excellent point.
I believe that there are lessons that we can learn perhaps from the South African experience. You've mentioned Ford, you've mentioned Toyota. Well, we should all realize that Nigeria is still the biggest market, okay, whether for cars or for any.
Is it a liquid market?
Well, it's still the biggest market, so we have that potential.
Right.
And in terms of the automotive industry, once upon a time, in the 60s, 70s, we used to have factories assembling completely knocked down vehicles or semi-knocked down vehicles. In Kaduna, they had Peugeot. In Lagos, here, they had Volkswagen. In the East, there was Anamco. In the 80s, we even have Mazda. We had Mitsubishi. We had Steyr in this country. But by the 90s, everything collapsed. We started importing second-hand vehicles from any part of the world. Now, in 2014, the Nigerian government introduced what they called the Nigerian Automotive Industry Development Plan. 2014 to 2024. We even set up what is called a National Automotive Council. But the problems we've not been able to manage. Under this administration, there's been a lot of focus on the ease of doing business. We've seen tariffs being introduced, to manage the automotive industry. Now, a few companies have started doing, they've set up assembly plants again after the initial collapse in the 90s. But we don't see that momentum. We don't see enough incentives. And that is where the challenge is. So, because it's not enough to just compare Nigeria with South Africa.
True.
And we have issues in terms of skills development. We have issues in terms of infrastructure. And when you look at the Automotive Industry Development Plan, 2014 to 2024, we can take a look at it and say, what have we been able to achieve? Why are we not achieving enough? Why are investors not looking in that direction? Since we say the automotive industry is part of Nigeria's industrial development plan, we have all those plans. So why have those plans not taken off from the papers on which they've been so brilliantly written? But I understand we need to take a break.
All right. Rose, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We still need to take a break. We'll come back. We'll talk to Michael Wilson, joins us now from London. All right, moving on now. We've got Michael Wilson, who joins us now from London. He's talking about business with us. Still business, Michael. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning.
Michael, have you got the jab already?
Yeah, yesterday at
voila, that's it.
Just first one, second one, April the 20th, which also happens to be my birthday. So how about that?
Happy birthday. That's a great present, Michael.
April the 20th. That's the next one. That's the good one. So basically, Reddit mania appeared to be running its course overnight. Clearinghouses squeezed collateral that the trading platforms actually needed. To GameStop and Silver slumping along with some of the other favoured stocks. When will we hear about GameStop again? I suspect not in the not in the near future, but there we go. So let's go to Asia markets then. Higher energy prices and virus-related lockdowns, basically across Europe. This is the big one. The China's services PMI missed severely, falling to 52 versus the 55 expected. It's just the temperature really of the services economy. It's just an index of percentages, but still anything over 50 is good. But this was expected to be 55 and came down at 52. So it looks as if those kind of slowdowns are finding their way into the official data. Don't forget, though, pre-Lunar New Year distortions in the data. We always get that. That is all coming up. February data, and that will be affected too as we approach the Chinese New Year. Asia generally, though, shrugged that off. The Nikkei up about 1%. China initial hesitancy, but the Shanghai Composite up about 0.5%. And Hong Kong, well, that's seen retail profit taking really, so 0.75% lower. Let us turn our attention to the Chinese e-commerce giant Alibaba. Strong results for last quarter. If you remember, its founder Jack Ma suddenly came back into public ear, talking very, very non-controversially about the values of the Chinese education system. And we have no news about Ant Financial's postponed float. That is the important thing to come out of all this. US recap and Wall Street, a big strong show yesterday. Up S&P 500 up about 1.5, Dow about 1.5, 2, all in positive territory in pre-market trade as far as this morning's concerned in London, and as for the morning goes before the markets open round about our lunchtime. Basically, the US markets are still on stimulus watch. So what it means is that people won't take any notice of much. They'll buy dips in equities, but it's still challenging to get this thing through Congress. Now, the world's richest man, Jeff Bezos, lucky him, I'd give up work if I were as rich as he is, but he's not. He's stepping down as chief executive and taking over a kind of deep thinking role within the company. All sorts of things to do, including space exploration and all the rest of it. Amazon delivered its largest ever quarter by quarter revenue, 1.25.6 million. How much is he actually worth? Just a casual $200 billion. What would you do? I tell you what, I would honestly not go to work for that. It's pointless. Have a nice time. And when you're that rich, you know, you can actually think about things like this spacecraft and the rest of it. He also owns the Washington Post, just in case he gets a bit bored. Alphabet too, Google's owner, record revenues, cutbacks by travel and entertainment advertising more than offset, obviously, by, get this, of course, online retail clients and others during lockdown. Also, Google Cloud doing rather well. The flip side of COVID is Exxon. ExxonMobil used to be the largest quoted company in the world. First annual loss in decades as the pandemic caused a plunge to energy use. Do you remember, ladies and gentlemen, in April last year when the oil price actually went negative? Yes, it did. In fact, it cost you money to store it rather than deliver it. Now, that's all changing, of course. Demand is picking up, but ExxonMobil is going to reshape itself, go a bit more green, what it calls lower emission solutions over the next 4 years, spending $3 billion on that. Well, we'll see about that. UK and European markets likely to open higher again. Despite the PMI data that was a bit on the weaker side. As far as the UK is concerned, budget discussions are taking place underway, the actual budget itself in March. But the important thing about this is talking to a specialist in the market this morning, and she was saying that, you know, there is really now a difference between forecasts and scenarios. Nobody is doing forecasts anymore. What they're doing is scenarios, i.e., if this would have happened, then that would have happened. If this would have happened, that would have happened. So really, economists are not, I would suggest, earning their money right now because they for once in their lives, have no idea what's going on. And I think they share a lot of that with everybody. Commodities, oil leaping higher, broke out of their 3-week ranges overnight to multi-month highs. That's to do with US stimulus, big swing in sentiment and all the rest of it, bit of global recovery and a bit of cold weather, strangely, as it's winter in US and Northern Asia, and a big fall in the US API crude inventories. Gold, now, here's the thing. I don't know what gold traders talk about all day. I mean, they talk about patterns and they talk about where the market's going and so on. And it turns out as the Reddit vigilantes hit silver and then pulled out, silver went down, so gold went down as well. The sum of all that is that people are saying, so what about gold then? Why is it reacting to silver? I do not know the answer to that question. I suspect it's reacting because it can, and as soon as the market moves, then everybody else does. That's your global view. Doctor, do you still want to talk about Myanmar?
Yes, well, I mean, okay, Myanmar, that topic has been on the table for days, but I wanted to draw your attention to something going on in South Korea. President Moon Jae-in and the ruling party, they've come up with this idea that corporate winners, businesses that are doing very well, because of the inequality within the economic environment, will now put money in a trust fund to help smaller businesses. How is that as a kind of model, as a way of addressing economic inequality, and what are the implications for shareholders' rights, competition, investment, or is this all about politics? Because Moon Jae-in may be running in 2022 for presidency again. Of
course it's about politics. But if we had talked about Myanmar, I was going to say that's one of the weaknesses of that particular economy, that banks do not lend to small and medium enterprises. And banks specifically are a bit nervous all the way around the world, particularly now. We can talk till the cows come home about entrepreneurship and opportunities and changing businesses and so on. But unless you put your trust in small businesses, then you aren't going to get very far. Now, what's happening in South Korea, I think is extremely constructive. It's a kind of wealth tax, isn't it, which is being transferred from big companies to little companies. Now, I suspect a lot of people would react very strongly about that, saying that's too much like state aid. However, I would say I think it's a very optimistic mood. And if, and it's a big if that capital gets people being more confident about their entrepreneurships. And of course, companies have to fail to learn from and all that kind of complicated stuff. Again, we could talk for days about that. But I think it's actually quite a positive move, yeah.
Right. Real quickly, just a quick reaction to that. But it's what the Korean government did for these shaibos, as they are called now. Because in the 60s, when South Korea got all the aid, the president then, General Gun-hae was giving all the money to those businesses to make them scale back in the days. And today they are multinationals. So the government has invested in those businesses over time. But I want to talk about Tesla, the recall, over 130,000 car recall in America. What's your say on that? Yeah. Tesla, the car recall.
Yeah, indeed. So I was impressed by Tesla to start with when they reached their target, but you know, lots of automotive companies suffer this as well. What I think it's all about is actually, if you've got a problem, then you seize hold of it. You don't pretend that there isn't a problem. It's cheaper in the end to have a recall with all the attendant costs and all the attendant bad publicity, if indeed that's what's going on, than it is to actually smother a fault like VW did, for example, with its diesel emissions for years, and then suddenly get caught out. So I think this is Elon Musk actually being quite good about his product line, if indeed that's what's happening.
Oh, Michael, don't we all wish that we're Jeff Bezos? This is not something extraordinary. We have seen CEOs step aside, but they still have a say in the runnings of the companies. But why now? And what are the likely consequences for Amazon, if any?
Amazon will continue. The markets don't mind it at all because the chap taking over has been with Amazon since the mid-90s. I remember I interviewed Jeff Bezos when he was starting Amazon, and his mantra was terribly simple. Do you know what he did? He went into a record shop and they didn't have the record that he wanted or the CD that he wanted. So a shop assistant came up and said, well, look, we haven't got that one, but perhaps you might like this one. And he thought to himself, that's what we need to do. And if you remember when Amazon started, never mind the giant it's become, when you used to go on there, it used to say to you, did it not? If you liked that and you want to buy that, have you considered this? And from that very, very simple idea, he made his fortune. Never mind the delivery, never mind the space travel and all the rest of it. It's actually giving the customers what they want when they want. And when they're in a buying frame of mind, just saying to them in a friendly kind of way, do you want to do this? That's what is Amazon. That's where it actually started. I don't begrudge him. Well, I do sort of, but like we all do. I'd like to have the billions, of course. But you know what I mean? It's actually well deserved. And this is the problem. I mean, Amazon is going to face its problems. Make no mistake about that. The high-tech backlash has not actually filtered through the United States yet. It will, and Amazon will face all kinds of problems too. You don't become a company like that. You don't become a tall tulip without somebody wanting to cut the top off, you know, above the herd and all the rest of it, tall flowers and all that kind of stuff. But in terms of Amazon, it will continue doing what it does. It won't be the Bezos effect. That's already happened. It'll continue to do it. It'll continue to increase its revenues. It's in the right place at the right time for online shopping. Of course, how could it possibly fail? Where have you heard that before?
Amazing, and thanks for your honesty. And happy birthday in advance, I should tell you. A couple of months away. I'm an April child, so right. We'll quickly move on to update on COVID-19 pandemic. This one, Maura is here with us. So this was always, I don't begrudge you in any way or form. But I'm just excited because you do this excellently well.
Thank you very much, Rufai. Well, we've had 456,150 new infections globally yesterday from the coronavirus. We also unfortunately recorded almost 15,000 deaths across the globe. So there's been a steady decline globally, although some countries are still churning out those numbers. Here in Nigeria, the National Center for Disease Control confirmed another 1,634 cases of the COVID-19 infections in the last 24 hours here in Nigeria. And of course, Lagos pulled in the highest numbers with 440, next Anambra and the FCT. Away from Nigeria, let's go to Tanzania, where the health minister, Dorothy Gwajima, had told a press conference in the capital of the country, Dodoma, that there was no plan in place to accept COVID-19 vaccines. Just days after the president of the country of 60 million people expressed doubt about vaccines without offering evidence, it is not clear when any vaccines might arrive Tanzania, although the country is eligible for COVAX. So what you see on the screen was a press conference where the health minister, the woman there, says that citizens should take herbal drink, they should use hand sanitizer and carry out steam inhalation instead of waiting for vaccines because there's none that will come to the country. Well, after criticisms last year for an early rollout, Russia's Sputnik 5 coronavirus vaccine is 91.6% effective against symptomatic COVID-19. And it is also said to be 100% effective preventing severe illness. And that's according to an interim analysis of phase 3 trial data published in the medical journal, The Lancet, on Tuesday. Already, the Sputnik 5 has already been approved by 15 countries, including the UAE. And this speaks to due diligence, transparency, and of course, improving public trust in that vaccine. Finally, a mutation that could allow COVID-19 escape antibody protection has now been found in samples of a rapidly spreading strain in the UK, and that's according to a report by the Public Health England. That's the update.
Right. I mean, if the Lancet can say it's good, I'll go to bed with that, honestly. All right. So, like I was saying, welcome back to the morning show. We're still on the beat on COVID-19. Like I was saying, if the Lancet can clear it, yes, I'm happy. Because if you know the antecedents of the Lancet, in terms of medical journal in the world, they have a very strong credibility base. But the scary part out of the story you reported is this new variant or strain that you're talking about that is evading antibodies. Because it's shocking to me. Because the way you fight disease is when you get the disease, your body, your T cells produce, obviously, antibodies that can make your system aware of the fact that if this disease come again,
yes,
then you can identify it and you can guide it. But if you're having this that is mutating, and that's why I think let's just get herd immunity on time. Let countries like Tanzania be quick to get vaccines for their citizens. And let all the world in general achieve herd immunity so that we'll be able to stop this thing in its spread, because the mutation is beginning to get scary. But on the contrary, I'm happy about mutations in the sense that there's this mindset in science that says disease definitely will mutate themselves to a point they can't mutate up and they obviously die off. I hope that is the case in regard. Because when you look at the 1980s strain, I'm not sure they got to a point where we got, jabs and vaccines to be able to kill off the H1N1 that happened in the 1918 pandemic. They probably just mutated themselves off, and at a point, they got out of cycle. And it's shocking that countries like Tanzania have not gotten vaccines. I heard they got some money from the EU the other day. What did they spend the money on?
Tanzania
The EU
is not planning to get
question.
vaccines. Because President John Magufuli is on record as having said that vaccines are dangerous.
Yes.
And he's saying that, look, they are not even interested in the COVAX facility. Because in his view, the objective is not really vaccination. The objective is to come and steal from Africa on the long run. But I think it's President Magufuli's views that are really dangerous and that we should be worried about. Now, what he is recommending is, first, he started with prayers. He was organizing national prayer sessions against COVID-19. Secondly, he held a whole election. Nobody observed any social distancing. Third, he's now talking about steam inhalation. There is a national steam inhalation program going on in Tanzania, and people are just inhaling, the president himself prescribed things that you can inhale, ginger, all kinds of things. So you find people running around, inhaling this and that. And then people are asked to take vegetables, to take fruits, so that they can build their immunity. And Tanzania is not, in fact, reporting on COVID-19. The last time they published any statistics was in May 2020. And you now have the president saying, look, there's no COVID-19 in Tanzania. Meanwhile, the Catholic Church recently, I think last week, issued a statement saying that they've discovered that whereas parishes used to bury maybe two funeral masses per week, now they are having funeral masses on a daily basis, in their various parishes. And of course, Magufuli is not alone. There are other leaders who think the same way, because he's saying if the Western communities mean well, by now they should have found vaccines for malaria, for HIV/AIDS, even for diabetes. That's the kind of thinking that you find in Tanzania, and I think it's counterproductive. Magufuli's position is dangerous.